Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, August 1st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 30 days, the game against Michigan in 121 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. Here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center with Tony Gerdeman. Just got a chance to watch the Buckeyes' first practice of the fall. Lots of stuff to talk about, but we need to start with the news of the day, which is not necessarily good news. Right at the end of practice, after things had to move inside because of some severe weather outdoors, defensive tackle Eddrick Houston went down with a leg injury. It doesn't feel like we know a lot of specifics right now, but definitely not what they wanted to see on day one of fall practice.
No, certainly not. And we've seen this before. Tyleik Williams went down a year or two ago. And when that happens right away, it just creates this pall over everything. And so, Ryan Day said he didn't talk to the trainers. I'm like, with my concerns about defensive tackle, the media can wait. I'm going to be talking to the trainers. And maybe he did, and he just wouldn't tell us. But yeah, certainly not something you want to see for any position. But right now, ever since last season ended, the big concern this year was defensive tackle depth. And when there is a lot of so many expectations on Eddrick Houston, who had all of 7 tackles last year as a true freshman, that gives you an idea of the lack of depth and why it is such a concern. But also, the hopes are very high and still are very high. We'll know more, but certainly not how you want to start day one.
No, for sure. And I remember last year during the preseason, someone asked us on one of our listener question shows, what is the position or the player they could least afford to lose on last year's team? And we both said Josh Simmons, and it was because there was questions about the depth on the offensive line and especially questions about the depth at tackle. And then what happened at Oregon? They lost Josh Simmons, and they had to sort of scramble to figure things out. This year, if you ask me who could they least afford to lose, I think it would either be Caden McDonald or Eddrick Houston, because, again, they feel good about the ones there. The question is, the guys behind them and the depth there. And Hero Kanu went to the portal after last season. And Ryan Day was asked about the depth there, and I thought his answer was interesting, where he said, yeah, they feel like guys have taken some steps. But then he didn't name the guys, which is a little unusual. Yeah,
the room as a whole has taken steps. Like, well, who and what steps? Well, let's calm down. So generally that was an opportunity for him to name some names. And this is what Jason Moore has done, and this is what I liked when I saw from Will Smith, and we're starting to see this from Tywan Malone, and don't forget about Eric Mensah. And I think I just threw out all of the non-true freshmen that they need to see something from. And we know he's mentioned Will Smith. He did that at Big Ten Media Days. Will Smith, he's 3-tech size, but has played some nose tackle. So, as we know, everybody cross-trains, but certainly they need help up front. And, guys are looking good. Guys are stepping up. Who are they? And when we talk to Larry Johnson later in camp, he's probably going to say something very similar, where you have to ask him about specific players to get specific answers, and then it's kind of like, well, you're saying everybody looks good. And so that can't possibly be. Because if they were, why is everybody in such a bad mood?
This is one of the sort of nuances of covering the team. You have to kind of ask a broad question, because if you ask, how is specific name doing, you're going to get coming along, still some work to do, whatever. But what's most meaningful is when you ask about a position group or room, and then you get a specific name, and the order in which those specific names come out is usually very telling. Ryan Day may be onto us that we have clocked that, and so then you don't get specific names. So the frequency with which we've heard Will Smith's name at Big Ten Media Days is a little bit telling to me. We saw him out there quite a bit today. You saw Tyler Malone. You saw you see the guys that you're sort of they're hoping are going to take those steps. This was a non-padded practice, so and there's a lot of individual drills with the offensive line and the defensive line, so you don't get even a lot of those guys going against each other. So there's a limited amount you can learn about those areas. One thing that Ryan Day brought up that I, obviously directly related, I would say, to the Eddrick Houston situation is how to practice. And, that was about, it wasn't, it certainly wasn't heated, but it was a very pointed conversation about when you're out there and you don't have pads on, you have to be careful about what you're doing around other guys, because you can, in a moment, have a really significant problem.
Yeah, he talked about how in the NFL you have to practice without going to the ground, and we hear it all the time here. Stay up, stay up, stay up when they're doing these studs and things like that. He said if you're on the ground a lot in the NFL, you're going to get cut.
Yep.
Basically, you're not listening, and you are uncoachable. And we saw him. There was a play where Jeremiah Smith caught a slant on Aaron Scott, and I think Scott maybe started to stumble and hit Jeremiah.
Didn't like tackle. Just there was contact.
Right.
It wasn't like a hit.
Yeah,
but it was contact.
Like lost his balance a little bit, and so Ryan Day came over to him, and it was letting him know that we're not hitting right now. We're just trying to. Everybody stays up. Everybody stays healthy. And he said you got to practice like that for each other, because as much as I don't want you hurting that guy, I don't want that guy hurting you either. So it's a two-way thing to keep everybody up. And we saw some guys going to the ground, and you're always going to have that, but you're trying to limit that. And because this, you could put the quarterbacks in the regular jerseys in the spring, because you could afford to get an ankle or a shoulder. Now it's serious. You still have to build up the physicality, but the first week is like, hey, it's almost patty cake in a sense.
Well, they're not in full pads, so that means for people, they talk about it as shells. So there are sort of shoulder pads, and they're wearing football pants, but they don't have thigh pads in, knee pads in, hip pads in. It's really, the whole point of this is the NCAA has rules on you have to have a certain number of non-padded practices. I believe it's 3 to start fall camp. You have to have a certain number of non-padded practices to start fall camp, just because they don't want you coming out here on day one immediately going pedal to the metal, putting guys in a spot where you got to kind of ramp up a little bit, because they really haven't been hitting at all since the spring, more or less. And so now you don't want to just throw guys right in there and okay, you're going over the middle and we're gonna work on getting right to the edge of targeting, and not you're not doing that by any means. So these first couple practices are very, very it's thud tempo for the most part. Really, pretty much all. I don't think we saw anyone going to the ground intentionally other than the ball, the fumble recovery drills the defense was doing, and that's not 3 guys diving in. That's here's the ball. I practice on falling on the ball. These are not very physical practices, but that's by design.
Yeah, I think some of the times I saw people going to the ground is when a receiver or a DB is making a play on the ball.
Yeah,
and that's just you're extending yourself and you're trying to do what you can to make a play. Other than that, even when they're in scrimmaging, once they catch the ball, they're blowing the whistle. We're trying to just install these plays. We're not looking for yak right now. We don't need yards after the catch. We just need to play, execute it, and all right, next play. Because the more you're running around after the ball gets caught, it's like, well, now we can't run another play because you've just been running around. So when they're just trying to get this install stuff done, they're just trying to get it done safely, quickly, and then move on to the next thing with everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see quarterbacks. I remember there's a play where Tavian St. Clair kind of took off out of the pocket and runs, and before anyone got within 3 yards of them, they're blowing it dead. They don't want anyone even forgetting where they are and bumping into someone. So that's sort of the Eddrick Houston situation as we know it right now. We will obviously continue to follow this and hopefully have an update for you later today. We will be talking to Matt Patricia and Brian Hartline again on Friday, so we'll maybe have more information. So that moves you from, hey, they're trying to not have guys run down the field to extend plays, that kind of stuff. Part of that is they're trying to get as many reps as they can during these practices, because right now you're trying to get everyone reps. And one thing that we've seen them do last spring, maybe even last fall, was split the field, where you have 2 offenses, 2 defenses, where they're kind of mixing and matching position groups, And the whole point is you're getting twice the reps. And Ryan Day said they can get 48 reps, so basically 24 times 2. In one practice period, your 5-minute practice period, you can get 48 reps. That is an incredible practice time. And everything that they do is designed to cram as much football as you possibly can into as small a period as you can.
Yeah, one of the things I like about the split fields is that you'll watch it over here, and then over there they're going to do the same exact play. So and they're not generally going at the same time. Usually there's just because it doesn't match up that way. So you'll watch them over here, and you'll know what to watch for over here because it's going to be the same exact play. And you can see how this quarterback handled it compared to that quarterback, how this running back handled the screen compared to that running back. The problem is that on this field you've got the number 1 center, the number 1 left tackle, the number 1 right tackle, and the number 2 left guard and the number 2 right guard, and it's switched over there. And Carnell Tate is the lone one on this side, and you got Jeremiah Smith and Brandon Ennis and Mylan Graham on the other side. So it's complete mix and match on. Well, put together the first team. It's like I know what the first team is based on how spring ended, more than what we saw here. Like nothing has changed my mind on who the ones are because everything is pretty much known. And I would say. There's nothing in terms of this offensive lineman or this receiver or this running back. Like it's all the same, and the quarterbacks were all just it's Julian, Sayin, and it's Kienholz, and they're 1-1.
Right. Yeah. You've got half of the ones on one field, half of the ones on the other. There was a point
defensively too.
Yeah. Oh, defensively. Yeah. At one point, you're looking, and is Caleb Downs out there with Jelani McLean or with Malik Hartford? It's like, no, he's out there with Leroy Roker, and like, what does that mean? It means they're shuffling guys around. And the only thing that I really took away was, there was someone who had sort of heard, hey, maybe Ethan Onyema is going to be moving to right tackle, and they're going to look at Austin Sierveld at left tackle. Every time I saw Ethan Onyema, he was at left tackle, Austin Sierveld was at right tackle. So I am very reticent to take any big takeaways from who guys were working with, or this guy was with this guy but not with that guy. I don't think I have moved anyone on my depth chart or position projections, but we saw a lot of Luke Montgomery at left tackle, a lot of Taker Chabot at right tackle, a lot of Ethan Onyema at left tackle, a lot of Austin Sierveld at right tackle, and then Carson Hinsman at center. That's kind of what I would sort of project as your starters. I didn't see anything to change me from that thought process today.
Yeah, no, I think still left guard is Luke Montgomery and right guard is Taker Chabot. What we did see is they want the offensive lineman to have a secondary position. We saw Luke Montgomery at center. We saw Josh Padilla at left guard in that instance, where Josh Padilla is probably your backup center, but they had Luke Montgomery running it for a bit, and then Padilla needs that secondary position, so he was at left guard. Ian Moore was looking fine at left tackle, and with I guess we would call them the twos, and then I still the right tackle situation they'll figure that out, but I think if the number 3 tackle, whoever, like whatever position, it's Ian Moore.
Yeah, I think that was pretty clear to me that that's sort of where he is. And then you've got guys like Philip Daniels, the transfer from Minnesota. I think you could potentially see Luke Montgomery being your right tackle, and then your second best, if he's, if you have to replace both tackles, if Ian Moore comes in at left tackle and then Luke Montgomery's your fourth tackle and he goes and has to play right tackle, then you do see Josh Padilla in at left guard, or Josh Padilla at center and Carson Hinsman at left guard. This is all stuff that they're probably still figuring out, because they have to have you've got your plan A offensive line. You got to have a plan B for if this guy gets hurt, if that guy gets hurt, if that guy gets hurt. And then, I don't know what plan they got down to last year, but it was plan a bunch, because you lost Josh Simmons, you lost Seth McLaughlin, and they had to do a whole bunch of shuffling to sort of make the pieces fit. So they eventually landed on a plan that worked just fine. But this is the time of year where you're sort of figuring out, okay, if we use the choose your own adventure thing all the time, right?
Yeah.
If this guy gets hurt, turn to page 14.
Yeah, no, and I think their plan C worked better than their plan B last year.
Oh, yeah.
With going with Donovan Jackson over once Zen Mahalski got hurt. But the thing that I like about this offensive line is it is incredibly versatile. So they're not hamstrung by anything in terms of anything. they've got some options should things happen, and somebody goes down, and it's like, okay, well, let's weigh our three options, because I think for most situations they have that, they have some good versatility and gives them some freedom of, let's talk these out, let's put it in practice and see how it goes. Now, we probably shouldn't be talking about that, but the offensive line is deep and versatile. Let's just say that.
All right, so we've made people wait long enough. Tony, let's talk about the quarterbacks. You saw a mishmash of this guy's with that group and this guy's with that wide receiver, and both quarterbacks got to throw to Jeremiah Smith. Safe to say that wherever Jeremiah Smith is probably, we're going to call that the ones, even if no one else on there was the ones. Jeremiah Smith is the ones. At the start of practice, they're just taking snaps from the centers and just working on a play action fake and then dropping back and then getting ready to throw. And Julian Sayin was taking snaps from Carson Hinsman, which is the one. So there you go. That's the closest we got to a definitive who's ahead right now. Any big takeaways? Because Ryan Day did not seem to have any big takeaways from day one with the quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, if the head coach isn't going to stick his neck out there. But I thought, what I saw from Lincoln today was good. He made some nice throws. There was a lot of checkdowns today, which, again, you've got mixed offensive line. You're probably going to have some checkdowns. Tavian St. Clair, didn't get to see him do much other than run around and look like I'm being chased here.
Looked like he was behind the third-team offensive line a lot.
Yes, and then when we came inside, we had a pretty good vantage point of Lincoln Kienholz down there, but there's about 5 Buckeyes right in our line of vision for the Julian Sayin offense, so I didn't get to see too much of him down there. I would like to maybe make a point to watch more Julian Sayin on Friday's practice, but I liked what I saw from Lincoln. Again, we talked about in the spring, who's lining up in terms of the warm-ups in the front row. Both quarterbacks are in the front row.
Yeah.
So that's what you would hope for.
Yeah. Well, and Ryan Day has talked over and over about sort of I don't know if it's even really the soft factor. It's like, you've got the can you make the throws kind of piece of it, but there's also just the team leadership piece, and do you have command of the huddle and all that kind of stuff. It's the the stuff that's beyond the things that you necessarily just while you're watching highlights might pick up on. But a lot of that stuff ends up factoring into this decision, and that's kind of the hard stuff to judge, even watching practice. What kind of command does he have of the huddle from 30 yards away facing the other direction? And who has the faith of the locker room right now? And I think physically, in terms of making the throws and that kind of stuff, I think they're both kind of not quite to where Ryan Day typically wants the bar to be. You have to clear this bar to get the job. He's been asked a bunch of times, when do you want to have this decision? And it was kind of like, well, we'd like to have a quarterback before the start of the first game. It's like, yeah, I bet you would. Yeah,
those are words you never really want to hear. Like, before the Texas game, I would like to know who our starting quarterback is.
Well, you're going to have one way or the other, unless you come out without a quarterback for the first play.
James Peoples in the Wildcat. When we get to finally see more of the quarterbacks, and day one, how on point do you expect them to be? And then as we're watching, like, somebody can make a nice throw, but it might be a second or third read where he didn't stay long enough on the first read that was there. So like, it may look good to us when they get there and they watch it. Ryan and Brian Hartline and Billy Fesser are like, why didn't you stay with your number one? It was there. And it's like, so you can play the pass, but it's a minus play rather than a plus. And so they're all of those things that we're watching. We don't know where the ball is necessarily supposed to go on that first, the first read or the second read, and how quickly they're getting. Are they just immediately going to the dump off? Like, yeah, you picked up a first down, but how'd you do it? It's not the way we wanted you to do it. So, like, they've got to build up that not necessarily the courage, the patience to stay in there when it's a mix and match offensive line.
Yeah, and I do think that's an important part of this whole understanding the whole situation is how often do we talk about, you've got to work next to these guys and gel together and as an offensive line. If you're shuffling people in and out, you don't have any of that. And this is, these are offensive linemen who have probably been working together. You know, there are rules where they can come out and work together, but you can't have the ball if the coaches are out there and all that kind of stuff. So they've probably been working together in these various different combinations, but they probably also don't have, you know, the ones have probably worked together, or the presumptive ones have probably worked together a lot more than the one here and the two here and the one here and the two there. That you're going to get a little bit of a disorganized, not a mess, but it's going to be a little disorganized. It's going to be a little wonky, where your defensive line is probably a lot less important for the defensive line to have that, you know, continuity than it is the offensive line, which you go back to the start of spring ball. Which side of the ball is always in front at the beginning of spring ball? It's always the defense. It feels like that's probably going to be the case to a certain degree this fall as well.
Yeah, and another point with the quarterbacks, they're also throwing to mix and match receivers. One guy has Jeremiah Smith, and the other guy has David Adolph. No offense to David Adolph, but you know, like that.
I think David Adolph would probably tell you he's not Jeremiah Smith.
Right, and even, you know, Quincy Porter compared to Jeremiah Smith. So like, you're dealing with that. Nobody gets all of the ones. You get, you know, it's like you split the baby a little bit. This guy gets the better half of the baby and being Jeremiah Smith, but that's also what they're dealing with. And so yeah, it's not an ideal situation for the quarterbacks. But again, Ryan Day doesn't want ideal situations for his quarterbacks. He wants them to be in situations that are uncomfortable, because whoever handles the uncomfortableness of it best is going to win the job. So yeah, I'm so sorry about your Gabe Van Sickle at right guard. Like, he's in the two deep. You may have to play with him against Texas in the fourth quarter. Deal with it. That's your job as a quarterback. You have to deal with all of these factors that if you wanted to be in control, go play a video game. Go play intramurals, brother.
Go play intramurals, brother. Shout out Dan Hawkins. It is definitely a position where you don't get judged by how you do when everything's going great. Like, you can, you know, CJ Stroud was great in the first half of the Michigan State game in 2021, right? But everything was going perfectly. That's, you know, and everyone remembers it, and it's like, wow, that was fun. You get judged, though, by when you're in the Rose Bowl a month and a half later, and you're down 17 points in the first half or whatever it is. Okay, now how are you doing? You're on the road at Penn State in 2022, and you're down with the, you're down and there's 7 minutes left of the game. Can you drive them? You know, you are judged as a quarterback by how you deal with adversity, not by, well, everything's great, all the wide receivers are open. There are a lot of quarterbacks who can make, you know, functionally make the throws that you're making in shorts at the NFL Combine. You get judged by what you can do when the adversity is out there, and they are trying to put them in as adverse a situation as they can. That's going to be true at practice. You can only put them in such, so adverse a situation if you're not going to be hitting the quarterback and you're playing mostly 7-on-7. But man, you got a scrimmage coming up in like a week probably. So you're looking at when they are in the stadium, and when the lights aren't probably going to be on because there'll be a day scrimmage, but when you're in the stadium and they're throwing stuff at you, you're not. This is not like the last time you were in the stadium and they're running two defenses. You're going to get challenged, and that's when you're going to find out who the real QB1 is. I think. Yeah,
and Ryan Day said quarterbacks make their money on third down, red zone, and 2 minute, and so that's another way they will be judged. If you're the quarterback that moves the ball to the 20 but can't get it in there, like how frustrating have we seen it get over the years where you got the red zone quarterback come in, to help things like that's no solution. So you want the quarterback that can finish in the red zone just as well as they do on third downs and in those situations in 2 minute, of course. So that's another area where, and they don't need to go towards the end of practice and wait for 2 minute. Like they will put you in 2 minute to start things. Like, hey, we're in 2 minute right now. We got to go. And it's like, all right, let's see who operates best. And again, they keep track of absolutely everything.
Yep. So now from quarterbacks to wide receivers, you don't have firm conclusions on anyone, but it does feel like I watched Mylan Graham and I thought, the limited amount that we got to watch Mylan Graham, it was like, all right, he really didn't play much last year because when he got to Ohio State, but if Mylan Graham was going to take that next step this year, I feel like it was like, yeah, that's about what that would look like.
Yeah, it continues to be like that. And Ryan Day said that he does foresee a rotation. That's the goal of sorts, and he would have to be a key part of that because he continues to look like he belongs. He did drop a pass today. It was kind of a rough throw in the flats as he's running kind of a screen, and I think that's the first pass I've seen him drop this year, going back to the spring. But he's been outstanding every time we've seen him, and he looks like if you're just popping in, it's like, I bet that guy's a starter.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
I bet that guy would be a starter for about 128 teams.
Yeah. And do very well.
Yeah, and I don't, this is, if he's not a starter in Columbus, and I'm not expecting him to be, that tells me a lot more about the other guys in that room than him. And, Bryson Rogers is certainly in that conversation as well. This is not going to be a year where they've got only 3 wide receivers and you're just going to see the 3 wide receivers. There have been years where it's like, yeah, the depth is just not what it has been. This year, the depth is what it has been. And, you're looking at Quincy Porter was very impressive in the spring, and Quincy Porter's maybe the 6th guy right now, maybe, and they don't necessarily play 6 guys.
Yeah.
So, he's going to play obviously against Grambling and Ohio and teams like that, but we'll see. He has, there's a long way to go. This is the first practice of fall, and he didn't. It wasn't like he looked bad. It's like, boy, there's a lot of very talented veteran guys ahead of you. That's going to be a challenge for anyone to get on the field at that point.
Yeah, and he looked really good in the spring. He, as you said, he's maybe that number 2X behind Jeremiah Smith, but
how often are you going to pull Jeremiah Smith off the field?
Right, and the other thing is they're going to play 65 snaps a game offensively, trying to limit things so that they can stretch the season out and not be worn down. We know they're going to play some 2 tight ends, so that's going to limit the number of snaps for receivers as well. It's just the key is if something happens, is that guy ready?
Yep.
And I think that's what they're going to work towards. And you may not see 8 snaps a game for whomever, but if we need to play you 25, are you ready?
Yep, exactly. Anything else that you really stood out to you during the course of practice number 1?
CJ Hicks looks like a defensive end.
Yeah.
Like he's probably 245-ish right now, and he looks considerably bigger. So I think that's good.
Bo Atkinson, transfer from North
first
Carolina.
Look at him.
Yeah.
He certainly looks tall. Speaking of tall,
yep.
Jordan Woods, who I'm convinced can't possibly be a 6'4" corner. He was standing right next to us.
Yeah,
he looks 6'3" and 7'8". I'm not going to say 6'4", but it was interesting to watch him and Bod Penn Miller, both like 6'4"-ish, going at it in practice today. So that was interesting. And how about IGB was coaching? He's coaching up Fahim Delane on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. We saw him yell at Jordan Woods on one. He's like, "Hey, if you're going to press, get your hands on the guy." Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting to watch the seniors be seniors for the freshmen.
Yeah, you definitely see the veterans taking on kind of a bigger leadership role because you're looking around that practice field and it's like, oh, there's Jack Sawyer. Nope, that's not Jack Sawyer wearing number 33. If it is, he's lost a lot of height and weight. But yeah, all these guys 44. Mm-hmm. You see a Polynesian defensive end wearing number 44 with kind of long hair coming out of the back of his helmet. It's like, oh, there's JT Tweet. Nope. He is playing on Sundays now. There's Epi Citinelli. Yeah,
and I'll say he also looks bigger. And this is our first chance seeing him, but he was listed at like 225 or whatever as a high schooler, and you see him kind of thin in his highlights. He looks pretty legit to me in terms of size-wise now.
Yep. Before we wrap up, I did want to make a special request to our good friend behind the camera. There is some new signage in here. We generally try and get you pictures and all kind of stuff, and I posted some pictures of this on Twitter earlier, but they have replaced what used to be just kind of like banners, like vinyl banners on the back wall with the national champions it's like a fabric, and it's backlit and much, much bigger. And this is one of these things where you've got them all the way across that wall, and I don't know if we can turn the camera. We're probably too close to the other wall to be able to get the banners on the other side. But this is one of these things where you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, but this is what you're showing me. You're showing me what is the standard here. And they used to have things up on the wall behind he's going to do his very best to tip it up. It is way behind us. But there is the new thing. They used to have banners up there with, here's our Peach Bowl appearances, here's the Fiesta Bowl appearances. The standard is the standard right now, and the standard sure looks like it's make the college football playoff and win a national championship. You don't, you go to lots of schools where they have the Big Ten champions on chips on the wall. They have, Northwestern at Old Ryan Field had the Big Ten championships. They had the All-Americans. that was on the facing of the upper deck at the stadium. The facing on the upper deck of the stadium in Ohio State is national championships and retired numbers, which is basically Heisman winners and a couple other rare exceptions. The standard, this tells me, before it was, they had the Alabama Sugar Bowl and the Clemson Sugar Bowl up there, and then that got replaced after last season with photos from the Rose Bowl and photos from the Cotton Bowl and photos of the national championship game. Now this is sort of the messaging is it's a little bit telling to me about, they can tell you, here's the standard, this is them communicating to you. It used to be, well, we're recruiting against the Alabama and Clemson. Now it's the college football playoff and national championships. That's what success is, how success is measured.
Well, and Final Four banners have been hung forever unless they get taken down because of NCAA scandal. But this is what that is. And then I will point out that there is a vacant area right next to that 2024 with room for the next banner that Ryan Day said he wants to be the first Ohio State team. They want to be the first Ohio State team to win back-to-back national championships. I don't think he said repeat or defend.
He didn't say. They're making a point to not say defend.
Win two in a row.
Yeah, and there are, as you saw, there's room for 2 more college football playoff appearances on that banner up there as well. So I just thought that was sort of interesting, and this is one of these little things we get to see inside the building that I thought you guys might enjoy seeing as well. So. All right, so I think that will do it. I think we can wrap things up. We will be back here on Friday for another practice number 2, and we'll have get a chance to talk to Brian Hartline and Matt Patricia, and then a whole bunch of wide receivers as well. So that'll be good. Get a chance to talk to a bunch of players. We're doing that on the indoor, and then we'll have another sort of recap show like this. We'll have more video for you from inside practice. We'll have all sorts of photos for you, have a full practice report. That's all going to be going on at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We hope you can join us there. It is the fall camp thread is already really popping off. A whole lot of stuff to talk about there. New photos, new practice reports, insights, analysis, all that kind of fun stuff. And we take requests there as well. We had a lot of people, it was kind of like, what are you looking for at practice? And we can go tell you what we're seeing. You want to know who's, which safeties are playing together? We can make a note to take notes on that and let you know exactly what we're seeing. So. Great way to support us and the work we do is to become a member at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We've got our whole team covering the Buckeyes, covering recruiting, covering X's and O's, and a very fun and active community on the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. That is all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.